जास्त त्यांचा क्लाइम्बिंग एक्सपिरियन्स आहे आणि अनेक व्हर्जन क्लाइम्ब्स, अनेक फर्स्ट असेंट्स त्यांच्या नावावरती आहेत. या सगळ्या कामाचं किंवा या सगळ्या चढण्याचं, या सगळ्या साहसाचं नक्की मर्म काय आहे किंवा नक्की हे त्यांना का करावंसं वाटलं, असे प्रश्न आपल्या सगळ्यांच्या मनात असणार आहेत. तुमच्या मनातले प्रश्न तुम्ही कागदावरती लिहून आमच्यापर्यंत पोहोचवू शकता. आपल्याकडे 1 तासाचा वेळ आहे सरांच्या सोबत, सो आपणही त्यांना प्रश्न जरूर विचारू शकतो. मला बाबू बोरकरांची एक कविता आठवते की आपण सगळेजण आपल्या आयुष्याचं पर्पज शोधत असतो आणि काहीतरी मार्ग ठरवतो. जसं त्यांनी सुद्धा ठरवलं होतं कधीतरी, ओळखतील जे मला, ओळखतील जे मला आणि मज दावितील मम यथार्थ ओळख, ओळखतील जे मला आणि दावितील मम यथार्थ ओळख, कणकणी माझ्या देतील किंवा अवघ्या ब्रह्मांडाची पालक, असीम त्यावरी प्रेम करुनिया करीन मी हे कृतार्थ जीवित, असीम त्यावरी प्रेम करुनिया करीन मी हे कृतार्थ जीवित. माउंटेनिअरिंग क्लब्स ही आपल्या सगळ्यांना परिचयाची असलेली एक गोष्ट आहे आणि तसा जगातला पहिला माउंटेनिअरिंग क्लब, त्याचे अध्यक्ष आज आपल्या सोबत आहेत. आय वेलकम यू अगेन ऑन द स्टेज. We were discussing about so long career as we have, but to begin with, I would like to ask you, we generally grow through what we go through. So, please let us know what is Alpine style, which is actually your identity in the field of mountaineering.
You're coming now. Well, Alpine style is really just something in your head. It's an approach to mountaineering which is pure adventure. You look at a mountain, you try to determine as best you can what you need to climb it without going up and down, without establishing camps. Just taking a route that you think is going to be the best, the safest, and carrying everything you need on your back. I certainly didn't invent it. Another name for it is lightweight, and as you'll see tomorrow in the pictures, oftentimes that's an anomaly. It's not lightweight because if you're climbing a mountain for 12 days, you need quite a lot on your back. But it's the idea that you can take on a challenge, take responsibility for that challenge with just a couple of friends, and get to the top. But the top is not nearly as important as coming back, and coming back as friends with an amazing experience. Repeated or not, I mean, the world has changed. The first big route I did was in the Hindu Kush with Wojtek. I think that's a name that many people know. Wojtek is, in many people's opinion, the best alpinist of all time. And Wojtek was also trained by people in the same style when he was much younger. So it was a kind of coming together with my friend Alex McIntyre, who at that time was really my apprentice. He was a very good climber, but it was his first time in very big mountains. And we were traveling across the Soviet Union, as it was in those days, on a train. We didn't realize at the time that the Poles were smuggling us across the Soviet Union because we couldn't afford to fly to Afghanistan, so they decided to buy some railway tickets, having changed our money, dollars, on the black market in Poland, and they could afford to buy railway tickets. So my name was Portovich, and Alex was McIntyreski, and the Poles were excellent smugglers. They used to do it all the time, back and forth. And at some point on the train, Wojtek came in to our carriage, and Alex was lying on the bed, and Wojtek said, "Alex, would you like bandaka?" And Alex said, "Oh, bandaka, not have that. Do you have it hot or do you have it cold?" And so, no, it is a mountain. And once you see the picture, you will want to take a big sheet. And he showed us this picture of this mountain, and it was, as you'll see tomorrow, horrendous. It was like the Eiger, but at 23,000 feet nearly, and it looked horrendous, very scary. Now we went and did that route. It took us 6 days. We didn't have permits for it, but that's a story you'll hear tomorrow. And it's unrepeated because and nobody in their right mind would go back onto it. It was far, far more dangerous than the Eiger. 2 weeks after we got back, Alex made the first Alpine stellar ascent of the Eiger Direct, and I had to go back to work, but he came home and I said, "What was that like?" And he said, "Well, I'm glad I trained on Bandaka because it was really easy." And of course, global warming will affect things. I have no idea whether there's even the final ice face on Bandaka. And another one, very famous and unknown route was the South Buttress of Chagalang. In Goa, Himalaya, luckily we were one of the last expeditions to be allowed to go up through the Rishiganga into the sanctuary. That was in 1998, and again you'll see the pictures tomorrow. But that face was really a challenge because it was, if anybody knows the Alps, it was like climbing the Walker Spur for 3 days, and then at 20,000 feet starting to climb El Capitan. And it was the first time that alpinists, slept in hammocks on 4 consecutive nights on the wall because it was that steep. And I know people who tried to go back, and there are probably, I know there's better climbers out there nowadays, there's fitter, there's better equipment, but the problem with trying to repeat Chagalang is that no matter how you do it, you're going to have to climb El Cap after having climbed a really hard alpine route. And you're going to need to have somewhere to sleep. So unless you take a portaledge, and the young speed climbers today like to go really light and fast, and I don't think they want to carry a big portaledge. Anyway, it has been tried, but nobody has yet managed to repeat it. So that's in no way, but I hope somebody gets up it in excellent style sometime soon. The other thing is that we were incredibly lucky. Although we had storms every day, but the summit day, to have 8 consecutive days on that face without a storm was a piece of luck. So as in most mountaineering, without luck, you're not going to get up it. And I'm sure those have gone and just had bad luck.
So, as you just said, climbing, I think it builds trust. So, which were the partners you had while you were climbing that you find most trustworthy out of?
I think I'm getting a hand mic here. Am I? I climbed with a generation of young alpinists. I think we were probably back in the 70s a bit more, we took more risks. And we were living now in a time when you look at the headlines on Everest, you think it'd be the opposite. I think we had an understanding of risk, whereas people are now risk adverse. And ironically, people buy a guide to take them up Everest thinking that's going to reduce the risk, but that's another story. There might even be a question on that, I suspect. I've had partners who have saved my life, and partners who have saved their lives, Burgess twins being among them, Alan Rouse. Alex McIntyre started as my apprentice, and he nearly killed me on our first route. But I saw that in Alex there was something very special, so eventually, 10 years later, he became my master. But of all the people that I'd have total trust in was Wojtek Rüdiger. We always had a bit of a debate on mountains, what next, what route. And sometimes they got quite heated. There was once on Bandaka on that route, I said, look, it's 4 in the morning, we must get going now before the stone falls. This was on the 4th day. And he said, no, we have to wait 10 hours. And I said, what do you mean? He said, if we start now, by the time we get halfway up the next stone chute, there will be a complete rockfall and that will die. We have to wait till the sun leaves the face at about 1 in the afternoon. So we had a bit of a discussion, and Wojtek won, and he was right, because as soon as the sun hit the face around 6:30 or 7 in the morning, it was like the sound of, to use a Christian analogy, the angels being thrown out of heaven. I've never seen such rockfall. And Wojtek was right. If we hadn't, if we'd gone that day, we probably would have been killed for sure. Wojtek Kurtyka is the only climber I can think of who has done such amazing things. Most of the 8,000 meter peaks, the west face of Gashabon, 4 phenomenal routes all around the world, and he's never lost a partner. He's never been involved in a fatal accident on the mountain. So it has to be Wojtek.
At this point, I would like to just ask you about the social aspect of what you were doing. It wasn't like you were just climbing, and there was nothing else in your life other than climbing. So it was not the case. You also, after you were climbing or after your certain sort of phase, you were aspect oriented into social angle, and then you founded the Mountain Heritage Trust. You also started Kendall Mountain Festival, which is just like what we are doing. We have also Girimitra Sammelan, so it is similar. But these were the kind of things that I think sets you apart from other alpinists, maybe because they were just more oriented on climbing, and there was nothing else in that. So how do you describe all these sort of angles to your personality, and what are these social kind of things that you were doing?
Well, the first thing I have to say is I'm doing it right now. And thank you very much for inviting me here for your 18th festival. I sometimes think, or maybe my mother thought I was a bit bipolar because I had a very short attention span. I've done 38 different jobs in my life, and I'm always looking for something new to do. And I guess I started my interest in mountain heritage, as many climbers do, by reading books. I read these fantastic books, The Road to Akakoshi and Scrambles Amongst the Alps, and Conquistador of the Uses, when I was a very young boy. And I thought, this is fantastic. There's a real wealth of literature. And then I discovered mountain painting when I was a teenager. Not just mountain painting from the West, but the Korean school, etc. And I began to realize that the really special thing about mountaineering is it is not really a sport. It's going in the Olympics next year, and that is maybe the first time it's a sport. But if it's a sport, it's the only sport that has grown out of man's attachment to the mountains and the landscape. John Ruskin, British painter and social reformer, said that mountains are the beginning and the end of all natural landscapes. And in that attachment to the mountains, that is where climbing and mountaineering began, the exploration of the world around us. It wasn't on the playing fields of Eton, on a court, on a board. It's a very special sport. So the heritage and tradition behind that includes all of human activities, all the arts, all the scientists, the geologists looking at the mountains. That's where it began, understanding these the great fault lines, and there was something very different. It wasn't fixed, nothing was fixed. That led to Darwin to think differently about things, so on and so forth. So mountains are responsible for quite a lot in our lives, and we're responsible. So I just felt we needed to somehow capture this bigger story. And that is in the stories that are told at festivals like this, whether they're climbing stories or the photographic exhibitions or paintings, and capturing it one way or another through festivals or through exhibitions is very important. So we set up the National Mountain Exhibition, and one or two of the films like Your Himalayan sort of night, if that hadn't been captured under a company I started called Steep Edge, it wouldn't be available still because it was an excellent independent film, but it received no showing apart from at festivals. So I'm glad we got that opportunity. So I guess I have a real passion for it. It's the one thread amongst all those other 38 jobs which has kept me on. It kept me on some sort of a level bearing.
So you've seen around few generations coming to mountaineering and just budding to be mountaineers. What change have you noticed in the coming generations as climbers?
Well, I hope all the passion is still there, but I think the world around them has changed, and it's changed dramatically in two ways. One is, of course, we're becoming more and more aware of the influence of climate change and our responsibility to do something about that. So that actually changes our approach to the mountains. And it's one of these two-headed coins. We have an approach to the mountain in the past, which actually, if you spend 30 or 40 days in a base camp, not at home, turning on the lights, driving your car to work, you ended up in a positive carbon footprint. Whereas nowadays, due to ease of access, a lot of the younger climbers will get to Delhi and then fly up to somewhere near to the mountains, or Kathmandu and take a helicopter to base camp. So we're kind of creating our own problems there. So that's the kind of approach side, environmental side, that does worry me a bit. But the other side of this is that, like, okay, as we all know, everything is much more commodified. Everybody's trying to find something to sell, and it's very difficult to sell the lifetime experiences you gain in the mountain, although people are trying to do that. There's, again, two sides of this coin. It's meant that a lot of young climbers and people with a passion for the mountains have a chance to actually make a profession of it, either as climbers, photographers, guides, equipment manufacturers, which is great. It gives them an opportunity to live their passion. But on the other hand, through social media and through people thinking that, I can get a selfie on the summit of Everest or a selfie on some cliff edge, it's back to this lack of experience that leads to risk assessment. Aristotle said that you gain experience through ignorance, and you gain wisdom through experience. But a lot of people who are pretty ignorant think that they can become wise standing on the edge of a cliff, trying to take a picture of themselves without realizing that the edge is about to give way. There's no shortcuts, and I think that because there's so much pressure on people to be seen to be doing something different, that's probably the thing that has downgraded mountaineering and made it of less value. But for the real mountaineers and for those professionals who found ways of truly taking responsibility for themselves and their clients and the equipment they're making or whatever, it's a wonderful opportunity. So climbing, as in almost everything else in life, and I'm sure everybody in this audience knows, given your religions and the depth of knowledge, that there's always a bad with a good, and vice versa.
So, if it is not so secure than the regular expedition style climbing, what are the security measures, and why would you and why would anybody choose Alpine style?
That's a very difficult question, because I suppose you could say nobody in their right mind would choose to try to climb a big face with so little equipment and no security. Driving through Bombay in the last couple of days, I wondered why anybody in their right mind get on the back of a small bike and try to get through this mess. So but you're experienced at it. I'm just amazed. It's a real art. I have no idea how you fit 6 cars, 2 trucks, and 2 mopeds in a row across a lane, 2 lanes. I mean, it's pure magic. And I suppose that word magic and luck, actually, have to come into it as well. Because the real security in alpine climbing doesn't really exist except in the mind. But it's there also through that experience and wisdom that I referred to before, through years of experience. My friend Alex McIntyre really believed you need to put 10,000 hours. This is the outliers belief that if you put 10,000 hours into any pursuit, then you'll become proficient at it. But more importantly, you'll understand all the elements of it. You'll understand the good, the bad, the possibilities, the risks, and you'll know that just because you're suffering a lot, it's actually still quite a lot of fun. Because you'll know you can get through that suffering and eventually get down to the pub for a beer. Security is in the mind because you put the time and the effort in. You have the trust in your friends. And you have the experience to know that you can probably get back down the mountain in almost any condition. I'll tell a story tomorrow about one moment when I really doubted that, when we needed lost a friend. But it is really about experience. There's one other sacred factor in alpine climbing which there doesn't exist in expeditions, and that is speed. Because you're moving quicker, you're spending far less time at altitude, your body doesn't deteriorate as quickly. Whereas many expeditions, 2-3 months above 7,000-8,000 meters, it really takes away and your mind begins to go.
Instead of just, like the other day you said, buying a thrill and, going there. So, what do you think, what is in your opinion, the role of clubs, different clubs where they have members and the members, go through the ladders and then they are ready to lead. So they have spent time, they have got exposure, they have got experience, and then slowly once they go through it, they are ready to lead. So how is it similar or different in UK, and is there some sort of thing in UK, and how do you relate all these?
I wouldn't be here now. I wouldn't have been a mountaineer if it wasn't for a club. I lived just north of Boston in Massachusetts when I was a teenager, and I read those books I talked about, and I happened to pick up a journal of the Appalachian Mountain Club, and I said to my mum and dad, look at this, there's a climbing club nearby, and they ran rock climbing for beginners, entirely voluntary. I was playing quite a lot of sports in school, but these books had fired me up to try this thing called rock climbing. So my poor parents, anyway, my dad took me down, and I met people in the club. I learned how to rock climb, step by step, first on top rope. Within the first year, beginning to lead easy climbs. And by the time I was 15, actually, they trusted me enough that I was leading meets for beginners. So it must have seemed strange to some people in their 40s and 50s who arrive as a 15-year-old boy with the experience already for themselves. So without the Appalachian Mountain Club, I don't think I would have learned to climb properly. And of course, now I find myself as president of the Alpine Club. And by the way, the only other time I've been a president of an Alpine Club is I was the president of the Alpine Club at the University of Oregon for a while. And so I was President Porter, and my vice president's name was Cooley. It was Porter and Cooley. And it's a very appropriate name. I was doing a new route in Yosemite with a guy called Tom Fender, and I was Jumaring over this overhang with these 2 huge haul bags. And Tom Fender shouted down and said, hey man, have you ever thought about the significance of your name, Porter? So it's a little bit off the subject, but it's this mentoring. And the clubs create an atmosphere of support, and just that moment to spot somebody who has a spark, or somebody who maybe is trying something too hard and just calming them down. It's extremely important, but the clubs are also the people who help protect the environment, who help teach the ethics, teach good behavior, protect and capture and protect the mountain heritage. They're extremely important. I am, again, very worried that it seems to me sometimes social media, the Facebook groups, again, nothing wrong with it. There's a way for people to meet each other. But I sometimes feel that some climbing groups that appear just on Facebook actually have closed themselves in, because they've closed themselves from the opportunity of meeting other people through clubs they never would have expected to meet. I may be wrong, but I think Facebook oftentimes, or social media, limits people to age groups. Whereas the other great thing about clubs is it's open to everybody of all ages. So it's a real family and community affair.
We are really impressed with your fitness, and we also read and know so many stories about how you survived out of the toughest climbs. But there is one point in our lives that we cannot really forget, which is the most difficult point in the climbing where we've defeated the fear. So, which was the most tough climb you've ever made? You always understand the risks of climbing for yourself. You always think that something might happen to you, but you never expect it to happen to your friends. So, as I tell in my book, I lost my great friend Alex McIntyre on an opponent. I didn't expect it. He pushed himself very hard beyond those 10,000 hours, and because he was so determined to become a profession, he maybe took one step over the edge too far. I really think that. There are some times when you need to sit down, when you pack your rucksack and you're looking at the face and saying, are we up for this? And really look each other in the eye, and if there's any doubt, you don't do it. I spotted doubt in Alex that day, set off. On K2, I had a similar experience with another friend of mine, Alan Rouse. And that was probably even tougher, because that was 4 years after I'd lost Alex. Alan was going through a lot of personal problems, having lost his girlfriend, from the love of his life before he came out. And he was determined to get to the top of K2, regardless. And I just tried to talk him out of it. So when you say what was the toughest climb, it was actually those moments when you realize there's something not working between you and your best friends and your teammates. Those are the tough moments to take, because those are the moments you wish you'd somehow just said, right, you're not going, let's get the hell out of here. You oftentimes learn much more from failure, and certainly from tragedy, than you ever do from success. Success is entirely illusory.
Can you please tell us more about this phrase and how it connects to the book that you wrote about your friend? It's an award-winning book called One Day as a Tiger.
Well, the phrase, it was an American guy called Rick Silverman, who was the director of the Telluride Festival, who invited me there years ago, and he wrote in the program for that festival, Tom Porter was a member of the generation that nearly climbed itself into extinction. And I hadn't really thought about that, but then I realized there was kind of a truth to it, because the people I climbed with regularly, Peter Boardman, Joe Tasker, Paul Nunn, John Sire, Pete Texton, Alex McIntyre, Alan Rouse, Roger Baxter Jones, George Pettenberg, Jean-Marc Roy. There were a lot of fatalities, but I'll have to put that into context. In the mid-70s, it was the end of the Great Game. It was the end of the big national expeditions. In 1975, Bonington led a incredibly successful expedition to the southwest face of Everest. I mean, we were absolutely gobsmacked when they got up. But that style of expedition, and the expeditions being run by the South Koreans and the Russians and the Yugoslavs, were in my mind still part of the game of planting national flags on summits. So Alpine climbing in a way was something which was breaking away from that. It was forming small international partnerships of groups of friends which were climbing just for the love of climbing. The problem was that at the time we were doing this, all the 8,000 meter peaks had been climbed, and some of the 7,000 meter peaks, not many of the 6,000 meter peaks. But we knew that if these weren't climbed Alpine style, then eventually somebody would come along with a big expedition and put up fixed ropes and camps, which, okay, that was the way they climbed, but we rather do it in a pure style. But like test pilots in the 70s, we didn't know where the edge of the envelope was. So altitude and climbing at altitude, if you look at most of the loss of life of friends I mentioned were on peaks above 8,000 meters. So the higher you go, if the difficulties increase with lack of oxygen and the altitude, you reach the edge of the envelope. And that was the thing where we hadn't really assessed, because nobody tried this Alpine style on these big peaks before. It was impossible to assess the nature of the risks we were putting ourselves in. So as a result of that, there were a lot of fatalities on those big peaks. And I think that, to answer one of your earlier questions, the top alpinists nowadays learn from us, as we learned from the previous expedition. We didn't want to climb out to the big expeditions and expose ourselves to the risks of spending many days at altitude. And there's a group of young international climbers all around the world doing really hard routes in the Himalayas, which the press never report, but they learned from us. They are much better at risk assessment, they have better equipment, they're better trained, probably more skillful than we were, and they have good weather forecasts, which we didn't have. So there aren't as many fatalities, but if you look at what's happened in this past year, what just recently happened on near Nanda Devi, and people like David Lama, and some top climbers all in the world, the risks are always there. So even though the peaks are lower, unfortunately there are still accidents taking place, even if they're not as frequent. I just happened to be part of a group that in the end, when we began to run out of climbing partners, we realized we had to lower our horizons, as it were. And certainly once I had a family, and you have the voice of your children in your head, you definitely slow down.
What do you think is real, the means of these words as mountain art, and are the aspects changing according to the new times?
Well, it's mountain art, literature and science, and as I think I said earlier, mountain heritage incorporates all those things.
And I think shortly it's becoming mountain commerce as well.
Yes, good point. But it also is mountain ecology. Actually, before I answer that, one of my friends who was killed eventually, Roger Baxter Jones, used to say, Alpine climbing is the three rules only. Come back friends, get to the top, in that order. I'd like to add another one, and that is give something back. And giving something back means doing something in the communities where people go climbing, helping out, making sure you have offset, making sure you actually make sure your agents take everything out that you paid them to do. And perhaps, to get to your question, it's also taking back the sense of the mountains through art or literature. That was one of the founding purposes of the Alpine Club, the art side. But the Alpine Club was formed in 1857 by a group of very wealthy English gentlemen who possibly made their fortunes not entirely by what we would consider pucker means these days. It was still the age of empire, and they had plenty of time to do sketches and art. That's not to downgrade those people, because there's some lovely paintings from John Ruskin, for example, but they were definitely men of leisure. But they still captured so much of the essence of the mountains through that art. I think the reason that was made as one of the founding principles was because it set the tone for the way the Alpine Club would collect things ever since. And we have a huge collection at home. As president, I've realized we need to not only make sure it's safe, but we need to make sure the world sees some of it. So we're working much closer with overseas clubs and looking at exhibitions. Some of it is very precious and we're trying to get out. The Ruskin paintings, for example. But for example, next year in Nagano in Japan, we're having an exhibition alongside the Olympic period of the early Japanese alpinists who learned from the Reverend Western. So it's part of telling the story to the wider world.
Every of the nation is so keen and so particular about their climbers climbing the peaks for the first times. So, I mean, it's a kind of prestige for every nation to have good climbers with them. So what do you think is necessary to be told to these mountaineers about the pressures, about the stress they go through?
So, can I just understand is this a warning of, no? Climbing should not be, we talked about, is it a sport? I said it isn't a sport. There's always rivalry in everything we do in life, but it has to be measured rivalry and it has to be balanced. It's great to think, oh, we climbed this before my rival over there got up it. But it shouldn't in any way put anybody else in danger or at risk. And that also can happen. And I think the pressures are much greater now. I mean, going back to opportunities in the commercial world, Alex Lowe, a climber, American climber, you may know the name of, he was killed on Shishapangma. After he'd been on Triangle Tower earlier that year, he was a member of the North Face climbing team. And he got home and he had one of those moments when he realized, I don't want to go, I want to be with my family. And his employers at North Face said, Albert, you know, this is your second expedition this year, you've signed a contract. So those are the sort of pressures that some mountaineers are under these days. And it's artificial pressure. You shouldn't ever go into the mountains having been told to do so by somebody else.
You just talked about something that we also have got some information about your marriage as well. So we would like to know the story behind your marriage as well.
Behind mine?
Your marriage story that we all wish to know.
There is a funny story that we heard about your marriage. If you would share, this is a personal question, but if you could share it, it would be quite hilarious.
This is the opposite, because this is a story of someone who wanted to go to the mountains and was told not to. I got back from K2 in 1986, and I was working as a civil servant at the time, and I thought I'd taken all my summer holidays. Anyway, I went to check with the HR, and they said, oh, you've got another week's holiday. And I thought, what? Oh, I could do with a break. I've just been out in the mountains, nearly killing myself. So I went home, and I told my then girlfriend, I think I'm going to go off to Chamonix and climb for a week, because I've got an extra week's holiday. And she said, no, you're not. We're going to get married and go on honeymoon. And I said, okay, that sounds good to me. So I was proposed to and I accepted. I was told not to go to the mountains and I agreed.
Any questions from the audience?
Now, the present state of affairs in Himalayas, especially the mad rushing on Everest and many other 8,000ers, what is the future of alpine climbing? And can clubs like Alpine Club or major clubs in the world can alter this situation?
Well, I think things go in cycles. I mean, I hope people will come to their senses and realize that perhaps going to Everest, on a commercial trip isn't the best choice for somebody who really wants to go into the mountains and make it part of their life. But in my club, and I know there'll be individuals sat in the audience here who have a tremendous passion for the mountains, and they will eventually become Alpine climbers throughout Europe and around the rest of the world. There are lots of young climbers going out. There are still far more mountains over 6,000 meters unclimbed than there are those that have been climbed. So all the adventures are still out there if people want to find them. And every year, a number of younger friends that I have go and do some amazing climbs, and there might be a little note in the Alpine journal, and that's it. Nobody else knows that. So I think it's alive and healthy. I think as long as there are people who are on the lunatic fringe who like to play on rock and ice high up in the sky, the future of Alpine climbing is fine.
Linked to that, what I would like to ask is, how is the role of being qualified, being properly trained, and going through different certifications or whatever the levels that have been decided, so that a person gets qualified to lead, or a commercial expedition that somebody is taking a few people into mountains and they don't really know what is going on and all that. So where this whole training and qualification and this comes into picture, and what exactly is the scenario in the UK?
Well, in the UK, we had a crisis back in the mid-1970s where people who wanted to have a certificate to go climbing had a range of choices. There were a lot of small colleges or individuals who were saying, come learn with me and you'll get a certificate. And it was all a lateral, there was no professional development. And it wasn't controlled, it wasn't monitored. And it was leading to accidents. And the British Mountaineering Council, and a guy called Bob Pettigrew became chair of a committee to look at this, and I was fortunate to be part of that committee. So what we did was we began to put kite marks of quality on certain elements of training. And as soon as we worked out what was the best, and there were some already some good practice, like the Mountain Leadership Certificate, we used that as the baseline, which is basic, excellent navigation, first aid, being able to map read in all conditions, knowing when somebody's suffering and what pace to go at, some basic things like that. Putting that into a winter context, putting that into a bigger mountain context, putting that into a instructor's context, we're taking people on much more difficult routes, and eventually leading to the guide. So we took all that lateral, unrelated training opportunities and said, right, we're going to kite mark the best, and we're going to create a professional ladder and make sure that that is maintained. And nowadays, nobody would get insurance in the United Kingdom to take people out climbing unless they had the right training and the right certification. And it's tough. It's very tough. It's one of the toughest in the world. It's quite interesting in the French Alps. The guides openly admit they're caught on the storm on Mont Blanc on the summit, and they hear a Scottish or an English voice, they immediately make a beeline because they know those guys are going to know how to navigate off in bad weather. Because that's what we're used to. I think there may be similar problems happening here in India. I know in Nepal it's looking at the same problem, and in China. I think it's very important alongside the work that the clubs do. The clubs need to say to your professional body, you've got to get this sorted, get a good quality training program. And the clubs can act as a platform for that.
Gross training would you recommend for a good mountaineer?
What general training?
Yes.
Gross training. Yeah. Well, Yeah, all training. Yeah, well, we didn't have set programs when I was doing that, but just to give you a bit of background, I played a lot of tennis. I was a marathon runner. I was a trail runner. I ran sub 3 hour marathons quite regularly. But you couldn't just do that. You had to make sure, because the only real training for climbing is climbing. Because although your body needs to be fit, the ability to actually climb really difficult rock and difficult routes can only be gained through this. So you need to be physically fit and you need to be mentally fit to climb. Nowadays there's very good programs and good diets. I think we probably ate too many egg and chips and too many pints of beer at night. This is why the younger generation have a head start on us. But I think just regular training is very good. I mean, I've lost a bit of my training fitness for sure, because I had a new hip at Christmas time. And as I was saying earlier, I just need a new shoulder and a new head, and I'll be able to get back on the mountains again. But I think what you feel comfortable with is the most important part of cross training. If you train just to think that strength is going to get you up the mountain, that's not a good training program.
Mountain art, as you said, kinesthetic intelligence and naturalistic intelligence. So I want to ask you, what are the benefits of these in developing your own philosophy for the life, and how has it worked for you?
Gosh, why do I climb, I think is the question. Or what have I learned from climbing? The benefit is that you know in the end that you're conquering nothing. I know this has been said before. You're not conquering anything. You're working with a mountain when you climb the mountain properly. You're opening your eyes to everything around you. There was a German philosopher, sorry to dip into this, Mountaineering, who described two types of fear. There's the type of fear which is, the fear that you might have driving through Bombay at rush hour or standing beneath the Sarak on a mountain. But the other type of fear is that of every moment that we live connects the past with the present. And we enter that with a sense of angst. So we're always, on the one hand, wondering what's going on out there, but also what might happen in our life that we don't know about, this moment of angst. And this is almost answering your question, one of the things that happens when you're on a big mountain is that those two types of fear become one. Every moment you're there, you're both aware of the objective fears, and you're also completely attuned with the subjective fears because you put yourself there. I mean, it's the old cliche, you're hanging on to your life by your fingertips. But unfortunately it becomes true. But it's more important than that. It becomes a metaphysical experience because you're a pinpoint of existence in the universe, and you know exactly where you are. The phone's not going to ring, a horn's not going to honk. You're entirely yourself, and hopefully you're at ease enough to deal with that situation.
Sir, during your expedition, did you get any call from heart that you need to stop now? As due to high altitude, people may experience hallucinations. So is there any meeting with the god of death called Yamaraj?
Have I experienced hallucinations? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, well, it's the third man thing, oftentimes, or when you're solo, sometimes there's somebody else there. It definitely happens, but I think it's a form of oxygen deprivation. I'm pretty sure it's something which your mind is beginning to not function as it should do. And that you have to be extremely careful with, because you can actually begin to not only hallucinate, but you think you're not in a dangerous situation. On Changabang, our friend Christoph Zurich was ill, he had a kidney infection, and he went into a state of complete hallucination. He thought he was back in Poland, and we were actually trying to get down off the summit of Changabang. And he was, when we came to the summit, he said, "Oh, I think we're safe from here." And if we stayed, it would have been an 8,000 foot stayed over a cliff edge. So only once could I say I made a mistake. I thought it might be fun to do a bit of high step kung fu on the top of Changhunda. And so I picked up my ice axe and I was jumping along the ridge, and suddenly I thought, hold on, this is not safe. And I stopped, but I nearly went over the edge. So yeah, your mind doesn't function as well as it should. I've not had the same sort of hypoxia that you get, you hear famous stories of people with somebody else following them in the mountain. That's never happened to me. If it happens to anybody in your team, you need to be very careful because there's probably some psychological or physical problem with that.